If I only knew. By Wanderlove. Chapter 6. Anakin paces back and forth in front of the comm system, his shoulders hunched up near his ears and his movements sharp, jerky. Obi-Wan knows he should intervene and tell Anakin yet again to calm down, think rationally, but it hasn't worked yet, and he has no proof that this time would be any different. And it is exhausting, preaching inner peace when Obi-Wan feels none of that peace himself. Really, the only thing that would offer them any solace in this moment is if they could see and hear Shmi, even if it was only over the tenuous connection of a flickering comm call. But such relief eludes them despite multiple attempts over the 4 hours since Obi-Wan had come crashing into Anakin's room. Why isn't she picking up? Anakin's fists clench open and close rhythmically. She should have picked up by now. It's the middle of the day cycle on Tatooine. She's probably at the shop and being watched by Watto. Obi-Wan reminds him for the umpteenth time. That shouldn't matter. She should know that this is important, that I wouldn't come her off schedule unless it was important. Anakin stops pacing abruptly. I should take a ship to Tatooine. Padawan, stop. You're being ridiculous, Obi-Wan says sharply. I understand your concern, but let's maybe give your mother a standard day to return our calls before launching ourselves on a week-long journey to the opposite side of the galaxy. What if she were to call when we were in hyperspace? Anakin scowls and resumes his pacing. Finally, the comm link gives a faint beep and Anakin dives for it, typing in the accept code with shaking fingers. The holo flickers once, twice, then solidifies into the supremely irritated visage of one Shmi Skywalker. Obi-Wan thinks it is the most beautiful sight he's ever seen. Anakin, Obi-Wan, she greets brusquely. She's dressed in a simple linen getup with a wrap around her head to protect her eyes and hair from the sand of the desert. She must be deep in the wastes on one of her visits to the local moisture farmers. They'd place an order with Watto's shop, and a few days later, Shmi would walk into the desert, loaded down with a hover sled piled high with junk and scrap parts to hide the slaves beneath. The farmers were good people, poor, practical, but determined to help in any way they could. Mom! Anakin's voice is achingly relieved. Where are you? Are you safe? As safe as I can be, Shmi replies dismissively. Anakin makes a worried noise and her eyes sharpen. Peace, Annie. I'm at the last farm. Good. They can help you run. What is this? I'm not going anywhere. There's still plenty of work to be done. You don't understand, Mom. I've had another dream. It was bad. Very, very bad. You're in danger. Terrible danger. You have to leave. Oh, Annie, I'm always in danger. Shmi sighs. I will take your warning under consideration, but if I flinched at every threat and shadow, I would not be standing here today. And I know you have blessed previously, but Aramu's gifts can be easy to misinterpret. No, Mom! Please listen. This dream is different. It's so much worse than usual. Why would Aramu have given me this gift if not to save you? You must understand what you're asking of me. If I run, our ruse would be up. I'd never be able to return. There are people here who are relying on me. Would you have me save myself and abandon them to Deper's mercy? Shmi, is something wrong? A worried voice interrupts from off-screen. Obi-Wan cannot see the speaker, but she sounds young, female. He briefly wonders at who she is and her importance to Shmi. He can count on one hand the number of beings that Shmi trusts totally and absolutely, the kind of trust it takes to allow this girl to sit in and listen to this call. And 2 of those trusted beings are her sons, and the 3rd is a carking droid. No more than usual, Shmi says dismissively. I'm fine, thank you, Baru. Mom, please! Shmi, I think you should listen to Anakin. Obi-Wan interjects, stepping into frame. Shmi does a double take and stares at him, no doubt taking in his wrinkled robes and dark under-eye circles. If not for yourself, then surely for the people relying on you. If you are discovered, do you really think the Hutts won't know that you had help? They didn't carve out a small empire by being stupid. And oh yes, Obi-Wan has been dealing with Skywalkers for 10 years, and he knows exactly which pressure points to twist, press, hold. He sees her pause considering and knows he has found a chink in her armor. That's hardly a fair question. I never claimed to fight fair. There's 100 different interpretations of such a vision, Shmi argues. There's a very, very slim chance that it's as literal and straightforward as you believe. We often don't fully understand visions until long after they have come to pass. If we wait for it to come true, it will be too late. Anakin interjects, voice hoarse. He closes his eyes as if rewatching the vision play out in front of him. Normally, I would agree with you, Shmi, Obi-Wan adds. In my padawan days, I too was often plagued by dark vision. I found them confusing and frightening, but eventually came to believe that they could not be understood, let alone averted, that what the Force willed to be would be. But I wouldn't be willing to bet everything on that belief, especially when the thing I'm gambling with is your life and the lives of the entire network you've built. It is not my decision, of course, but I strongly believe that you should leave Tatooine with the greatest possible haste. Shmi regards them both for a long, unbroken moment. Finally, she bows her head. There's a Weequay pirate crew based out of Florum that owes me a favor. If I can get a message to them, I can be off-planet by evening song tomorrow. Anakin collapses in on himself and begins to sob openly. Thank you, Mom. Thank you for listening, he says brokenly. Make sure to take anyone at the homestead with you, Obi-Wan reminds her softly. It'll be the last place the Hutts can track you to, and they'll show no mercy. Don't worry, Shmi, the same girlish voice says from off-screen, firm, unyielding. We always knew that this was a possibility. We're ready to go as soon as you give the word. There's a rustling, presumably as Baru stands up to alert the other members of the farm and starts making the necessary preparations. I'll let you know as soon as we're off-planet, Shmi declares. May Aramu guide your footsteps. Oh, may the Force be with you. The transmission cuts off as abrupt as it starts. Anakin and Obi-Wan are left alone in the darkness of early morning, silent and tense. Now we just wait, Anakin says bleakly. Obi-Wan stands up and tilts his face to look Anakin in the eye. And he has to crane his neck now. For for's sake, when had that happened? He opens up his side of the bond and brushes reassurance across the bridge. And now we wait, Obi-Wan agrees, forcing certainty and calm into his words. We have done all we can for now. The rest is up to Shmi. We should try and get some rest. We have a long day ahead of us tomorrow. Okay, Anakin replies listlessly. Neither of them move, staring vacantly into the space where Shmi's image had been a few short minutes earlier. They stay there the rest of the night and well into the middle of the day. The next few days are nothing short of torture. Shmi might be dead or worse, and they must sit here listening to banal pleasantries and petty squabbles. After the first day, they both resolve to leave their shields around the bond down so that they can offer each other constant reassurance. It's not healthy. Obi-Wan can feel their minds twining around each other, slowly growing so close that he is half afraid that they will never be able to disentangle themselves. But Anakin is hurting, and Obi-Wan decides that this is what matters. It is all that matters. Halfway through the third day of waiting, his comlink buzzes against his thigh, and Obi-Wan feels as if he is abruptly waking up, every nerve and muscle bursting with tightly contained energy. He immediately interrupts the latest round of once a group of children stole our chieftain's prize hunting cat and dressed it up in booties. An urgent call, he says, using his very best important Jedi business voice. Both parties strip off themselves to help, granting a short recess to the proceedings. Obi-Wan motions to Anakin, and they quickly stride out of the room set aside for the negotiations. They reach Obi-Wan's bedroom in record time, and with a deep breath, he sets down the small disc and activates it. Needless to say, the weak gray male that flickers into life in front of them is both entirely unexpected and entirely unwelcome. The man places his hand on his hips and surveys them critically, and distantly Obi-Wan can hear 3PO fretting in the background. Are you quite sure you should be doing this? 3PO's voice echoes through the shocked silence. Oh, I'm going to get this Baru. Surely she will know what to do. The weak gray grins. Well, what do you wish? She never told me she was friends with Jedi, he says, chortling. Hondo, get that back! That's not yours! You're snooping! Baru's voice comes angrily from off-screen. The weak way Hondo, evidently, waves a hand. I didn't want to snoop, per se, he says, not quite sounding apologetic enough. You seem like trustworthy folk, but I must be sure. It's just business, you understand. Anakin and Obi-Wan glance warily at each other. After an intense interbond argument over how to handle the matter, Obi-Wan clears his throat. I am Jedi Knight Obi-Wan Kenobi. To whom do I have the pleasure of talking to? Oh, look at those manners. Now, you're a decent fellow, I can already tell. Hondo Ohnaka, at your service. He does a dramatic bow, raising his eyes expectantly. Obi-Wan nods solemnly, respectfully, as if he has the faintest idea who this Hondo is.
It's wonderful to make your acquaintance, Mr. Ohnaka. After all I've heard about you, I was beginning to wonder if I'd ever get to meet the man behind the legend.
Anakin is looking at him as if he's going to suck an end, and Obi-Wan suddenly drives his heel into Anakin's instep off camera. He knows he's laying it on thick, but Anakin's incredulity certainly isn't helping sell it.
Oh, really? Hondo looks gleeful. You are the great scourge of Florum, are you not? You know, as a Jedi, I get to meet a lot of interesting people in my line of work, but I think you might be amongst the most interesting.
Your Madessa are a man of descending taste, Hondo says, wagging a finger at him. Obi-Wan inclines his head in acknowledgement.
But of course, we're both friends of Shmi Skywalker, are we not? Do you really think she'd settle for some half-right, tasteless buffoon? Speaking of which, would it be possible for me to speak with Shmi?
Of course. Some shuffling, a scuffle, and fierce whispering. Who am I to prevent such a heartwarming reunion between two friends? Let us go to the infirmary. The infirmary? Anakin jumps in. Obi-Wan shoots him a warning look. Hondo, just give me the damn comm! Beru snaps, suddenly coming into view after a loud series of scuffles, smacks, and knocks, presumably after successfully wrestling the comm unit away from the weakling. She's short, stocky, and fair, wisps of light-colored hair escaping from a no-nonsense bun. She has a scrape running along one cheek, but other than that is unarmed. Hello! Sorry about that. You must be Obi-Wan and Anakin? I'm Beru White's son. Not how I hoped to meet you, but here we are. Before you say anything, don't worry, Shmi is absolutely fine.
Obi-Wan closes his eyes and feels the knot in his gut loosen ever so slightly. Why is she in the infirmary then? Anakin demands.
We ran into a little trouble getting off planet. It was Klieg that took the worst of it. The rest of us are only a little bruised, but we had to amputate his legs. Shmi's fine, she's just sitting in the infirmary with him. She left her comm link unattended for all of 1 hour, but apparently that was long enough for someone to get ideas.
I can't be blamed for curiosity,
Hondo protests. You absolutely can, Beru responds tartly. The swish and click of a couple more doors. Shmi, Annie, and Obi-Wan are on the line.
Despite their combined worry, Anakin winces at the use of his childhood nickname. He only grudgingly permits his mother, 3BO, and Obi-Wan to use it. Then they can finally see Shmi, and the knot Obi-Wan's been carrying around inside for the past 3 days loosens completely. Like Beru, she's a little frazzled, a little beat up, but clearly healthy.
Honey? Obi-Wan? Why did you call? I told you to wait for me to contact you.
We didn't. Someone else called us, Obi-Wan explains. Shmi looks confused for only an instant, then her eyes narrow.
Hondo!
I am so terribly sorry, but I must admit that my curiosity got the better of me. Can you ever forgive me, my sweetest desert rose? You're what now? Anakin rather looks like he's been hit over the head with a frying pan. Obi-Wan stomps on his foot yet again. Shmi pushes her lips.
As you can see, I'm perfectly fine,
she says, completely ignoring Anakin's question.
Her eyes soften. Thanks to you, Annie. If you hadn't warned us, well, Jabba tried to purchase me from Watto, and they realized the transmitter had been sabotaged during the trade. He was not happy. With your warning, Hondo arrived just in time.
Anything for you, light of my night skies. Anakin is turning a fascinating chain of views. Where will you go now? Obi-Wan interjects softly. We can help you with whatever you require.
That won't be necessary, she says with a wave. Beru, Owen, and Klieg have already made arrangements to settle in the Chalmel sector.
That's great! Chalmel is super safe, but also close enough to Tatooine that you won't be completely out of the loop. Anakin says, voice bright.
Oh, I won't be going with them. I'll be staying with Hondo.
Shmi sits up straighter and smiles, a fierce sort of determination in her eyes.
What? Obi-Wan says faintly. Hondo's face fills the hollow once more, beaming. My dearest Shmi and I have come to an agreement. How do you say business arrangement? He says proudly.
The Hutts have been cracking down on the pirates, pushing them out of the more lucrative shipping lanes, or only allowing them to operate if they pay a heavy commission. I have agreed to stay aboard as a consultant of sorts, to use my knowledge of the Hutts and my contacts on Tatooine to aid Hondo and his men.
Shmi, that doesn't seem... No offense, but even your knowledge and contacts aren't nearly enough to justify the extreme risk of sheltering a fugitive from the Hutts, Obi-Wan points out. They'll betray you the moment the Hutts set the price on your head high enough. Hey! Hondo shakes his head in mock offense. He pauses. I mean, you're right, but come now, Jedi. I thought we were getting along so well.
Hondo and I have both agreed that the terms of the agreement are unfair, that if a new government was to rise on Tatooine, one led by, say, freedmen and women, they might not be so unfair, and they might be even more inclined to be generous if the pirates they are negotiating with have aided in their cause.
Not say bit more big picture than pirates are normally known for, Obi-Wan mentions.
I trust Hondo, Shmi says serenely, and just in case should he betray me, 3PO and several other droids spread across my network will upload a pre-recorded holo to the net explaining in excruciating detail how Hondo Ohnaka swindled the Hutt Council out of 500 million pegats by selling them a fake crown worth less than a simple wupuibi and claiming it was the lost diadem of Nal Hutta. Extended documentation and a short audio clip of Hondo exclaiming the scheme in his own words shall accompany the upload.
Obi-Wan's eyes bug out and Anakin's jaw drops open. Hondo looks at Shmi with an unmistakably fond look in his eyes. Oh, she is devious, isn't she? I tell you, fellows, you only meet a woman like this once in a lifetime.
So you see, I am perfectly safe as long as Hondo and I are united by a common interest.
So long as Hondo Ohnaka reigns, no harm shall come to Shmi Skywalker, the unparalleled beauty of the Outer Rim. What did you call my mother? Monster Annie, what were your partners? 3PO scolds. It's son! You never said your son was a Jedi, my dearest desert bloom. Why are you calling her that? Mom, why is he calling you that? Obi-Wan lays a hand on Anakin's shoulder before he can completely spiral out of control, though he certainly understands the sentiment. Anakin glances back at him, meets his eyes, and slowly, bit by bit, forces his muscles to relax. Obi-Wan nods, offering a gentle smile in support.
Honey,
Shmi begins and trails off. Anakin searches his mother's face and, having found some signal or sign, nods to himself.
This is where you think you can help the most people, right?
He says. His voice is high, shaky, a little unsure, but determined to be strong.
yes, I've done all that I can on the ground. Now this is the next step, and for all his bluster and greed, Hondo is a very capable pirate. I think we will do a lot of good together.
Such kind words, my most beautiful star. Anakin winces. Does it have to be with him? He complains. Shmi's eyes sparkle and crinkle at the corner.
Oh, Annie, she laughs, which is not really an answer at all. She extends a hand as if to trace the contours of his face.
I am so proud of you, my son. So very, very proud. I know you are growing up and hardly need my guidance anymore, but I'll always be with you nonetheless.
Anakin sighs and looks distastefully at Hondo's holo, but raises no further verbal objections. We wish you the best of luck, Obi-Wan says firmly. I am so glad that you are safe, Shmi.
Thanks to you too, Shmi responds. Annie, now that I no longer have to hide, our calls won't have to be nearly as rigidly scheduled and so far in between. Obi-Wan, I know you hate correspondence, but it wouldn't kill you to drop me a line or two every now and then. I love you both.
Goodbye, Mom. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
And with that, Shmi is gone. Anakin stares, then turns to Obi-Wan with a resigned, sort of shell-shocked look on his face.
I don't think the Hutts are prepared for what they've unleashed. I don't think I'm prepared for it either, Anakin admits. Did you hear? I got the impression that that's just how Hondo talks, Obi-Wan offers, grimacing. He too feels a little shell-shocked. He's dramatic, but it did seem a little one-sided, and in any case, I'm sure your mother knows how to handle herself. Anakin nods slowly. I know. She seemed happy. She's always been determined, and maybe it was being off Tatooine, having a new plan, or, I don't know, being with Hondo, but she was really, really happy. Huh, is all Obi-Wan can think to say. He'd gotten much the same impression. He wasn't sure what exactly Hondo and Shmi were to each other, and maybe it was just posturing and playful flirtation, but Shmi really did seem lighter and happier. Obi-Wan and Anakin stare at each other for a moment in contemplation. You know, I really don't want Orny to stepfather. Obi-Wan can't quite choke off his laughter at Anakin's pronouncements, and as one, they collapse into half-hysterical giggles, their relief and bewildered joy racing back and forth along the bond between them. Obi-Wan is the first to recover, catching his breath with a great effort and wiping away tears of laughter. I swear you and your mother are responsible for every single grey hair on my head, Obi-Wan says. You Skywalkers will be the death of me. Don't say that, Master, Anakin protests, still snorting. It's not fair to Mom and me. Surely the council and politicians you have to deal with are responsible for at least half. Fair enough, I'm sure that at least 3 of them are from the wonderful negotiations this morning. When we go back, can we keep the bond open? Just a little bit, just the first few layers. I forgot how much more bearable these diplomatic things are when you're in my head. Of course, Obi-Wan responds without hesitation, reaching out to squeeze Anakin's hand. I only ever closed the bond to give you some privacy, dear one. I quite enjoy having you in my mind as well. Anakin smiles, and the pleased warmth suddenly pouring across the bond is overwhelming. As one, they straighten their robes, compose their facial expression, and turn to the doors. It's a heady feeling, the feeling of in-sync strength that the bond gives them, and Obi-Wan wonders why any master and padawan would ever agree to give this closeness up. The rest of the mission to Ancion is, well, not good, but certainly better than it had been when they had been going out of their minds with worry about Shmi. There's even a giant party near the end to celebrate a successful compromise, and Obi-Wan and Anakin are the guests of honor for their part in mediating the compromise. For however long it lasts, Obi-Wan will need to make sure they were not reassigned once the board issue inevitably came up once more. Normally, Obi-Wan would hate these sorts of events and all they entailed. Oh, sure, he could be charming when he wanted to be, but really these parties were with the exact same politicians who were at the negotiations, trading the exact same veiled barbs, just dressed a little fancier. But he finds he hates these events a lot less when he has Anakin in his head, who snorts and laughs with glee at all of Obi-Wan's bitten-back zingers. They are currently on opposite sides of the room, half paying attention to slightly different but equally smarmy diplomats. Being a Jedi at one of these events often meant being somewhat of a sideshow attraction, as everyone simply had to speak to, or at least make eye contact with, the powerful, mysterious Jedi. Really, the only plus side to being a Jedi at a fancy political function was that Jedi robes were considered formal wear, as long as they were in reasonably good condition, and so while everyone else had to dress in stiff contraptions that looked less like fashion and more like multi-lettered cake decorations or ancient torture devices, Obi-Wan and Anakin could just continue on their merry way completely comfortable. Obi-Wan folds his hands into the billowing sleeves of his robes and nods very seriously to his conversation partner, sure that the man is saying something. It is probably very important to him, though Obi-Wan couldn't tell why he was supposed to care about this man's long-haired Toogie cat. Anakin appears beside him, his posture the very definition of serious and deferential, as he waits just slightly to the side. Despite the outward appearance, the bond reveals his impatience. Master, can we talk? He asks abruptly during a lull in the conversation. The diplomat looks a little taken aback, but is soon mollified by Anakin's earnestness. His padawan couldn't lie to save his life. Obi-Wan had long ago given up trying to teach that particular lesson, and instead had focused on teaching Anakin how to use an inherently brilliant and charming in an odd way personality to overwhelm and distract from his true purpose. He can't say Anakin's mastered the technique, and it would never fool anyone with even a modicum of sense. But it's a good deal better than the other option, which is listening to his padawan haltingly, mechanically stumble through a transparent falsehood. Obi-Wan inclines his head and murmurs regretful apologies to the diplomat as they walk away. When they're far enough away, his shoulders roll back and his jaw unclenches. Oh, thank force! For a moment there I thought that you had abandoned me to my fate! He groans as they find a less trafficked alcove near a wide, imposing window with a sweeping view of the city below. Anakin smirks and they settle, leaning against the panes. Don't worry, Master, he declares. I'll always save you. Obi-Wan rolls his eyes and they fall into easy silence. He catches a stray note from the live orchestra, and without thinking, he begins to hum a half-remembered melody, switching to words once he gets to the chorus, the part he remembers best. He didn't really know what the words mean, but he had always found the tune to inspire a good warm feeling.
Anakin cocks his head, staring at Obi-Wan strangely.
Did Mom teach you that song? What? Oh no, it's just something I picked up on while I was on a mission as an apprentice. What kind of mission had you undercover as a slave? Anakin demands. Now it is Obi-Wan's turn to stare in confusion. I wasn't undercover, per se, Obi-Wan says slowly. He stands up from his languid repose against the window. But yes, I did live with a group of mining slaves for a brief period. How did you know? We don't sing that song around the poor. Not even free people. He hesitates, then continues. The dialect is a little different, and they've substituted out a couple of words. Waves of water instead of waves of sand, and sea dragon instead of crate. But it's definitely the same song. Master, you didn't just live with them. For them to even allow you to hear that song, they'd have considered you one of them. You were a slave. Or at least they thought you were. It was shortly before I became Qui-Gon's apprentice, Obi-Wan says finally. Best to not bring up the fact that that whole mess was the only reason Qui-Gon had finally grudgingly agreed to take Obi-Wan on as his apprentice. He was investigating corporations on Bandomir when I was captured and brought to the deep-sea mines. You were a slave! Anakin sounds absolutely horrified, and his feelings pour across the bond. Anger, confusion, and hurt? I suppose? How could you not tell me? His padawan demands, anger coming to the fore. How could you never share this with me when you knew I'd understand that I could help? Oh, it wasn't a conscious decision, Obi-Wan admits, taken aback. The Ancionian orchestra continues in the background, sedate and melodious and oh so far away. It just never occurred to me. I was only held for a very brief period before I and another slave managed to escape. Nothing compared to what you've experienced. It seemed silly to share in light of that. Anakin slumps as if the strings holding him up have been cut. You really don't trust me, do you? He mutters. The bond trills softly with deep sadness. What? No, Anakin, of course I do. Obi-Wan's eyes widen in horror, and he reaches out of his padawan. Halfway across the space between them, Anakin shuffles back out of reach, and Obi-Wan recoils. No, you don't. Anakin's voice is dead, hopeless. At least not the way I trust you. What makes you see that? Dear one, please, look at me. Anakin ignores him and stares stubbornly at the marble floor beneath his boots. I want us to be a team, you know? For you to stop looking at me like I'm some little boy you have to protect, and as a man you trust and respect. I've fought and bled beside you for years. I know you trust me to save your life, but you don't trust me with anything else. Anything important like this. I come to you for help all the time, and I wish you'd do the same. I feel terrible because it's not fair that I just take and never give in return. And sometimes I think it's worked and you finally see me, but then the next moment you turn around and keep telling me how young and stupid I am. That's what the past few months have been about. You've wanted me to see you an equal, a friend, Obi-Wan asks, flabbergasted. Anakin nods, turning red. I thought you were pushing for knighthood. I mean, kinda. At first I just wanted you to treat me differently, and when that didn't work, I thought it might help if I was knighted. Obi-Wan opens his mouth, then closes it again, unsure how he's so completely misread Anakin's intentions. At this point in life, he's gotten used to only really comprehending half of what goes on in Anakin's head. But it still hurts sometimes to realize how little he truly understands his Padawan. It's moments like these when he is all too painfully reminded that Qui-Gon would have known, would have figured it out sooner, would have been the better master to Anakin. But nothing I did worked. It's like you think I can't help you because all you ever see is a little kid. Some days I think that's all you'll ever see me as. Anakin is breathing hard, frustration roiling across the bond and palpable in the humid air surrounding them. Your assumption about being knighted isn't wrong. You are my Padawan, Obi-Wan responds, gently breaking Anakin's truly tortured hover train of thought. And I won't lie to you, as long as that is the case, I won't be able to treat you like an equal the way you want. It has nothing to do with your age, and everything to do with that fact that I am responsible for your well-being. But after, when I'm not your padawan, you'll look at me differently. We can be friends then, right? Anakin presses, sounding a little desperate. He finally raises his head, focused on Obi-Wan, his eyes searching. Of course, dear one. Obi-Wan debates continuing the statement, then decides to scrap it all. Anakin literally just told him how he feels like Obi-Wan never trusts him. But it is also so very difficult to shape it the words, all the feelings stumbling around in his chest. And when that day comes, I think that we will make quite the team. I look forward to being your friend. At this, Anakin finally relaxes. He turns his face away, his delicate profile limned in starlight and strangely ethereal. It's a slave lullaby, he finally says, voice far away as he speaks to the window. Meant to teach us the way home, the way to freedom. I don't remember it very well, Anakin offers. I was 13 and really was only in the mines for a handful of nights. The other slaves kept me at a distance because I kept trying to escape. And then Qui-Gon arrived, and it was on to the next crisis. He clears his throat. But I still find the melody beautiful, even what little I remember of it, all these years later. It's comforting. Anakin interrupts, finishing the thought. Yeah, Obi-Wan echoes, reaching out to squeeze Anakin's shoulder, and oh so grateful that Anakin doesn't move away this time. Despite all the chaos and worry of the past week, there was something wonderful in this fragile split second, like seeing a fresh green shoot just beginning to poke through dark loam. So, of course, the moment is shattered by the sudden angry buzzing of 100 comms and hollow terminals in the room, including their own. Senator Amidala's chip has been bombed upon landing in Coruscant, and they are being recalled immediately to join her security detail.